Good to see you, Harry.
Good to see you too. How you guys been?
Doing
You got a beard going, Lance. I like it.
I do. I've had the beard for a while now. It's been a while since I've seen you. I'm trying to think of when the last time was.
It's got a couple of years at least. My beard's gotten white.
Yeah, mine's on the way for
yeah.
sure.
Mainly just because of the beer industry just fucking ages you faster than.
Please don't tell me that.
I was going to say, Laura looks like she's 18 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's doing that's different.
Laura, you look fine. And yeah, I wanted to kind of get a little color before I wrote it up because, you know, I don't. If you watched, I interviewed Wes Verno and Joe Verno, and they had a few, you know, good ideas. And but I thought your ideas were very practicable, if that's a word. And our merchandisers and our pre-salesmen and our drivers are still out there. And so I wanted to talk about a little bit about what you guys are doing to help those people not catch the virus, you know?
Sure. No, it was interesting. I just spoke with my merchandising manager who came in and just said, you know, I want to say thank you because I was just out at an account and I was making sure my guys had gloves and masks, and our competitor looked sober and he says, wow, my company's not doing that for me. And I thought, why not? It's the right thing to do. It's what you need to do in order to protect, you know, your people out there. They're the frontline workers. And if you're not doing that, there's something clearly wrong. But beyond that, I've got an amazing team and everybody has been so incredibly supportive and wonderful. But I think it does come down to really taking this very seriously and doing what you can to protect your frontline workers and provide them with the personal protective equipment, as difficult as it is to get, but you do what you have to do. You know, I love when they said, well, just take your temperature. And I go, if you can find a thermometer, then I'll give you $100 for it because we can't find, you know, I've got 17 on order, but they're making their way in. But it's been interesting. It's a whole brave new world. And I tell you, one of the things that is so incredible about BevCap is it's really brought together, you know, like-minded people that really take off their hat. They're not Miller, they're not Coors, they're not Budweiser people, they're beer people, and they're sharing best practices in order to, you know, create the best environment that we can for our businesses and our people that are out there. And one thing that was wonderful is that, you know, California was probably one of the first areas that really sheltered in place and started taking this very seriously. And we're performing very well, thank goodness. But I was able to share that information and what we were doing initially with individuals across the United States that hadn't quite gotten to the point that we were at. So this was just a great opportunity for all of us to come together and say, hey, how do we make this the best environment we can for our business and for our employees?
One of the things that I've noticed is, you know, I'm in Texas, so, you know, I've got my bandana, and I know, you know, this doesn't protect me. This protects other people. Yeah, we all got it. Just in case I have it. I don't know if I have it or not. You know how strong I am. Look at me. I'm buff. I'm athletic.
Hi, Harry. John
Hello, John.
Here. I apologize. Along with my thermometers, I also have cameras on order, and I just found out it's now postponed till August 1st before I get my webcam.
Just in time.
I'm going to have to do these Zoom meetings without, you know, my face, which is fine.
Well, God, I wish I could use that excuse.
So, you know, Harry, you know, to answer your question, how do we protect our employees? It's very difficult. And what I'll say right now is it's more of a balance. Now, certainly I'm in Central Florida, Daytona Beach area. I'm much lower risk than where Laura is. I think to date, we've had 9 deaths in the 2 counties that I cover. We're less than 200 positive tests, so very low numbers relative to some other places. But it's really a balance. So, you know, we provide face masks to the employees that want to use them. We've provided gloves for those that want to use them. We've separated all our people, so no 2 employees are working together. They're not riding in cars together. They're not working accounts together. So everybody is separate from a cross-contamination standpoint.
But John, what about your suppliers that want to do ride withs and check code dates and
Not happening. Yeah.
I'm half teasing, but you can see.
There's the chain resets. You know, we're still hearing some chains want to do resets, and we've said no, we're not going to do it because that just puts people in close proximity, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, but really going back to the balance, and you're right about the merchandisers, probably the most vulnerable because they have a hard time social distancing from the shoppers. And, you know, there's some concern, but, you know, if our folks are concerned and they don't want to work in that environment, we'll find someplace else for them to go. But most people want to work. They're happy that they can work. We're protecting compensation at 100% for every employee. So anyone who is displaced is operating off a 13-week average wage, regardless of the hours or the job they're doing. So
okay, so that was another thing that I was going to ask you about because you know, a lot of sales reps work on salary plus commission.
Yep.
And I did notice that one of the best practices was you take go back 3 months, look at what their average commission was, and and continue that pay, which is, I think, very, very generous and is the right thing to do. Have you kept your on-premise and draft people on as well?
Yes, everybody in our organization is working. So we've reassigned those folks. We have salespeople working in the warehouse. We have line cleaners, merchandising. Just whatever the talents of the individuals were, we placed them where we could best use those talents.
Okay, so
they're, quite frankly, they're happy to be getting a paycheck.
Right.
And we're fortunate enough to be considered essential, as funny as that sounds. But everyone's happy to get a paycheck, and they're happy to be part of a team that is pulling together to get the job done. I mean,
right.
To have salespeople in a warehouse, I mean, that's an oxymoron.
Right. They're like, we're picking orders. I mean,
Sure.
Now they know that. You know what? Well, you know what will come out of this, John and Laura, is salesmen will be like, God, we should sell things in order of sevens or whatever
Sure.
a pallet is now. What's a pallet layer? Is it 7 cases?
In some cases it's 7, but yes, that goes back to the 1990s when I started. Yeah, sell it in 7s.
Right, sell it in 7s. It makes it so much easier to pick it. Maybe we'll learn from working in the warehouse. People will learn each other's jobs, and on-premise and off-premise working together like cats and dogs.
Right, absolutely.
I would totally agree with you. It's amazing. I mean, you talk about on-premise, it is a different animal. And when we said, hey, you know what, we're going to keep you working. And by the way, you need to be at this chain store at 5:30 a.m. It was like, holy hell, what do you 5:30 a.m.? What do you mean? But it's like, yeah, this is a different beast, and this is what it requires. But at the end of the day, really, Harry, it's been amazing when you have people just say, you know what, thank you for letting me work, for being out there. And I constantly tell, my team, thank you for supporting our retailers and our community, because evidently beer and other beverages are very, very essential. And it kind of gives you that peace of mind and a little bit of normalcy at home, and that little bit of pleasure that you can have by watching the sunset and enjoying an ice cold beer. So all of our people are certainly incredibly grateful to continue to work. But you're right. I think it's going to open our eyes to a lot of ability to change, to morph into the 21st century of how do we be beer people, and all this stuff. It's gonna change the world for sure.
The beer industry will never be the same, Laura, I think is what you're getting at, and I agree. It's and it probably, we'll come out of this stronger. We are so fortunate. Thank God we're in an industry that is essential, and I do believe it's essential. I'm not sure the spirits are, but hey, that's another game. But what are you doing about kegs? So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Of course, AB hasn't given any guidance yet.
I think initially the most important thing for us was to get everything unhooked and cleaned, which that was our number one goal in the first couple of weeks. And we said, hey, we're not gonna touch those kegs quite yet, because this is our number one priority, getting the lines cleaned and making sure that, yes, that most of the kegs were refrigerated. And then you have to go back out and you kind of do on a one-by-one basis. It's like, okay, what is the most pressing out there? And maybe rotate or get those, because you certainly want kegs out there that are in code and that are ready to sell. When this thing turns around, you want to be able to turn those faucets back on. So it's been kind of a case-by-case basis for us the last week, just because of manpower and priority. And certainly it is nice to see the most, unfortunately not all, but most of our suppliers step up and say, hey, we're going to be in this together, and we're going to share this partnership, and we're going to support picking up those kegs. So eventually, yes, obviously we quality control and the ability with manpower to get those rotated and cleaned up. So one case-by-case basis right now.
And
Yeah, we're
ahead,
taking
Bob.
a little different stance. We did start picking them up. The message we sent, and of course we did what Laura said we did. The first couple of weeks was blowing lines out and just getting them prepared to sit for a while. But we recognize that there's a cash flow problem out there for the bars and restaurants, and they need money. And we're fortunate to still be in business, so we can provide a little bit of that cash flow. Now, what we've told the folks is, number one, the beer you get back is likely to have the same code dates. So don't do it if you think you're freshening up. And number two, when you open your doors again, your delivery is going to be whatever your delivery day is. So if you open on Monday and your delivery day is Thursday, that's when you're getting beer. So
Right.
you decide whether or not you want us to pick it up.
You can't service 2,000 accounts on a Monday all at the same time is what I'm hearing. It's like you
Exactly.
have to, everybody needs 5 to 7 days to service the completion of most of your on-premise accounts.
Right. So when you start up, you're going to go right into your normal delivery cycle.
Right.
And so just keep that in mind if you're asking us to pick up all your beer. But we're doing it, and then the out of code, I mean, they'll be out of code, and thank goodness for the PPP loan, because a chunk of that cash is going to go to cover lost inventory.
Right. And the distributors are still going to eat the brunt of the cost of this.
Right.
Not just the manpower, like you said, John, blowing out the lines with CO2, making sure everything's clean, picking the kegs up, storing the kegs, decanting the kegs. All of that is cost to the distributor, and it's just going to be a mess. I don't really think that people realize how big of an issue this is. I feel like I'm the only one. I don't mean to be alarmist, but I feel like I'm the only one that's fucking talking about it, because I mean there are 7 to 10 million kegs in the market right now. Whether they're empty at the brewery, whether they're full at the retailer, and whether they're full or empty at the distributorship. And I don't know. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be an expensive problem that I hope I'm wrong. Maybe I am alarmist. But Lance, thank you for putting this together. So I'm sorry we can't see you, John. 1995 called and wants your computer back.
Tell me about it.
Jesus. I thought beer distributors were rich,
Well, Harry, maybe I do have a camera. Maybe I just didn't want to share my face today.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for this call, and I'll be in touch. Take care.
Good to visit with everybody. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Lance.
Betcha.